But this is Sean. He says, who are the Vikings going to get with the first pick?
If J.J. McCarthy is there and if they can get to number 4, I think it's J.J. McCarthy. I've been told the trades will happen as the picks come up. If there is an Arizona deal at 4, it'll be announced just before Arizona chooses, and then based on which quarterbacks are on the board. If Minnesota gets to 4, I don't think it's a lose situation, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or if the big quarterback Drake May from North Carolina somehow drops to 4. The top 4 quarterbacks, they're all going to get a unique opportunity to play.
Was there any way that the Vikings could have re-signed Kirk Cousins?
He was asking mega money, and he'd already made. I'll tell you, he's a profiteer. He's a pretty good quarterback. Hasn't won bleep in terms of the playoffs. He's always had big contracts, and he went and got a huge contract from Atlanta. There's a big investigation. Atlanta tampered with him before the window opened, but the league is not ready to discipline those guys. The rumor is that they may lose a high draft pick for this contact that was made outside the window with Kirk Cousins, because they made calls and then Cousins made calls back. So Cousins, now he won't get penalized, but the Falcons, maybe they lose a second-round draft pick with that, which to me is a significant penalty. So not in Minnesota, they had to sign Danielle Hunter, the defensive end, and he left. He went to Houston, and Cousins wound up vacating. And last year they got rid of their big running back, Dalvin Cook. So Minnesota's gone through a lot of salary cap hell, so they're going to have retrenching, retooling. So we'll see if Arizona trades out, if Minnesota winds up with the 4th pick, and which QB they get.
Bring back Fran Tarkenton. Remember that guy?
Or Tommy Kramer.
Yeah, there you go. One thing I love about the Vikings when the teams play in Minnesota is how they use that Viking horn. Whenever something really good happens for the Vikings, I think that's fantastic.
They play indoors. My God, that noise from that horn ricochets off those cement walls.
Okay, let's move around. Let's go here to Willie. He goes, has Harbaugh hired Connor Stallings as assistant coach in charge of scouting?
No, not yet. You can't cheat in the NFL, so I don't think Connor's going to get a job with the Bolts. It is interesting as we go towards draft day coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, the fact that Joe Ortiz publicly announced, I make the draft pick. Now, granted, there's give and take, and the coach has input, but I make the draft pick. And then the follow-up question on his Zoom call last week, his pre-draft Zoom call, was, would you allow Harbaugh to take Michigan players? And Ortiz thought about it, and he said, they were 13-0. They were the national champions. Why would I not want a Michigan man on my roster? So I think if Chris Jenkins is there in the second round, I think the Bolts pick that defensive tackle, big wide body. But Jenkins has made some late visits. I think he might have moved himself into the backstage of the first round, so he might not be there. But there's 2 linebackers there. There's the running back Blake Corum. So I do think there'll be a Michigan man or 2 that'll get taken after the first round.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, bring some of your boys in. But who's this guy, Connor Stallings? I never heard of him.
That's the guy that was involved with the Michigan scouting thing that got him in all kinds of hot water. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The guy was videotaping. He wasn't shooting college campuses and old buildings. He was shooting opposing coaches, doing all the signs.
Okay, I remember that story. I didn't remember the name.
We move on.
Okay, let's go to Joe. Hey, popped in the eye or what, Lee?
And now listen, full disclosure, I did not get in a fight. But if I had gotten in a fight, the Raider fan would still be in the hospital. Now, I had a retina procedure. It's fine. I look bruised. I got what my kid calls it. My kid's a hockey player. He says, Dad, you look like a defenseman in the NHL playoffs. That's right. But no, if I had hit the guy'd still be in ICU.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll say this. The swelling has gone down and the discoloration has gotten a little better. So you're on the way to being healthy.
Can I get a medal? I've been playing hurt for weeks.
Yeah, you have.
Doing this podcast. You would never know it, because we're pretty good at what we do. Thank you for asking, though.
Yeah, Lee plays hurt. Let's go to Willie. He goes, why would Arizona trade a pick to move down? Doesn't make any sense for Arizona in any way. They can trade with Minnesota, then trade up with the Bears or Falcons. Your bias towards the Chargers is showing.
No, not really. Minnesota needs help lots of places. If you could solve all your problems just with the 4th pick, if it were just Marvin Harrison, you'd okay. But if you can get 11 and 23 and then maybe something else, now you got 2 number 1s in a really deep draft. So you help Kyler Murray in lots of areas. And by the way, there's a salary cap item that's attached to this, because the higher you draft, the more that first round pick gets. The later in the round you draft, it's a smaller amount of money, John.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're getting multiples of number one picks, if you get 11 and 23, and then you get a fourth as part of the deal, that's 3 more assets you don't have at smaller prices, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, the Arizona should trade down because they supposedly already have a quarterback, right? And everyone wants to move up for a quarterback. So I would, if I'm Arizona, maybe move down to 5 or 6. That makes a lot of sense. They shouldn't move like down to 21 or something like that.
Well, that's this rumor about Arizona Chargers. Arizona gives the Bolts number 4. Arizona winds up 5. Then the Bolts take the 4th pick and they trade that to Minnesota for 11, 23 and something else. Or they trade it to Denver, or they trade it to the Raiders for a volume of picks. So there's a lot of moving parts here. I think this whole draft starts with the 4th pick when we see what Arizona does.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be a great day in a few hours.
I love the first round of the NFL draft.
All right, let's keep moving, and we'll go here to Chris. And he goes, as the brief yet legendary voice of the USC Trojans yelling touchdown USC from Baja to the Canadian Rockies, I want your opinion of Reggie Bush's Heisman being returned. I want it because you are bleeping brilliant, damn it, and would like to hear the agitator and left field's 2 cents as well. Sound off.
Well, I've already expressed my opinion that was a great player. Greatest USC running back, considering the tradition of running backs from Charles White to O.J. Simpson and all these other guys. And I think he's the greatest running back in high school history in San Diego, which has a history of phenomenal people, headlined by Marcus Allen. But that being said, he never cooperated. He never showed remorse. They took $300,000. They knew the rules. I totally disagree with the sales pitch. Well, the rules have changed in 2024, so therefore I should have been allowed in 2004 to take money. No. Nobody at Purdue, Ohio State, or Washington was doing that. That's a big issue. I respect the player. I don't respect the person. You can't stand there and say, this is my Heisman. He did earn the Heisman. Maybe the Heisman should not have been taken away, but he did wrong. And in fact, he never apologized nor addressed what he did. And there's not a Trojan fan out there, John, that can tell me this program is equal now to what it was in the Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush era.
Well, we thought USC was going to be great this past year, and they ended up choking. But didn't Reggie Bush's parents were the ones that benefited from all this, not Reggie Bush himself?
Well, we think Reggie Bush got money. There are documentation of credit card charges made in Las Vegas on hotels with Reggie Bush there. I mean, he got benefits. Family got benefits. The rules were the rules, even though you don't.
The rules have changed.
You can't retrofit what he did, because it's different in 2024 than it was in 2004. You obviously disagree with me. That's okay.
I want to know more about when you were in the booth calling the USC Trojans games. Did you bring all the hacksaw shtick into the booth with you? Like, was it touchdown USC?
I worked with a really great color analyst, good friend, quarterback Paul McDonald, who's a star and really cool guy. And yes, from Baja to the Canadian Rockies, up and down the West Coast, this is USC Trojans football.
Right on.
No, unfortunately, I did them for 3 years. The post-great era. I did them
after Bush.
Yeah. Oh, no, I did it before Bush.
Okay. Oh.
I did it in the Paul Hackett era. And that was kind of a rebuild, and it didn't work out very well. And then Pete Carroll came on board, and boom, look what happened.
Yeah. Good days, man. I mean, you've been around, man. Your career is unbelievable.
If you do it long enough, you should get good enough at it.
Yeah, you should. Okay. So, yeah. Eki says, hey, Hacksaw, I've been sparring.
Yes, I walked into one. Thank you. No, I did not walk into one.
I was telling Lee that I posted on social media that you and Coach Quintera got into a fight with the Giles brothers at Granite Hills High School in El Cajon. Okay, let's go to John here. And he says, NIL is going to put a knife in the back of college sports. The revenues that football and basketball bring fund the other non-revenue sports. I guess the value of a free education isn't worth much.
I'm just offended by the whole bloody thing. I'm offended by the amount of money that's being paid to athletes that I don't think are superstars. I think granted, the athlete does have a right. They have a right to the education. I don't know how many of these athletes are getting their education rather than walking around like this. I'm just really bothered by the lack of loyalty of the coaches that you went to work for, who helped develop you into what you are. This guy says, hey, run out in the street. I'm a star guard. What are you going to pay me?
Yeah.
I can't subscribe to that. I do think this whole thing has been, I think, terrible for the overall big picture of college athletics. I can't forgive USC, UCLA for what they did that led the dominoes to fall, that destroyed the Pac-12 conference. And I do think that the NCAA is going to find a way to get this under control. It's not going to happen a week from Monday, but I do believe that there will be changes in the operation of the transfer portal, and there will be changes, obviously, in the NIL structure. It's interesting. There was a report today. The commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, Greg Sankey, was responding to the rumor that's out there of a super conference in which there's going to be 80 teams. He says that's never going to happen. He says college football is making enormous amounts of money, funding a lot of programs through our TV contracts. We are now headed towards the 12-team playoff, which we think is going to be successful. He says, we're not going to change this again. We'll have to wait and see whether or not something else radical happens. I would have never thought we'd be looking, after all the teams jumped, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? I never would have thought that we had a conference fold. Now we're sitting here looking at the Atlantic Coast Conference where Florida State and Clemson are suing to get out of the contracts they signed about TV revenue sharing. What happens to the ACC if the Seminoles and the Tigers vacate? I don't know where the hell they're going to go. I don't know if there's enough room in the SEC. This is so complicated. To me, it's a terrible turnoff. I'm tired of the money issue.
Pac-12 screwed themselves, didn't they? I mean, with their
USC, UCLA screwed themselves, and the Pac-12 didn't get a TV contract, and then suddenly Oregon and Washington said, we're not staying. Then the corner schools jumped, and they went to the Big 12. So it's terrible.
Well, you said you're offended by NIL and the money and everything. I mean, was Major League Baseball better during the Curt Flood era, or is it better now that they're free agents and they can move around?
It's better now because there's more talent and you have a chance to be competitive if ownership's willing to spend the money that they're taking in and being given in revenue sharing. Those players had a right to free agency. Did these players in college athletics, once they started to get paid, they have a right to continue all these legal cases to, quote, have free agency? These guys are moving. I mean, is there any San Diego State fan out there that's part of this podcast? Do you think it's good that 36 players have left your program since December, walking around like...
Well, imagine if you are playing junior college football, at some community college, and San Diego State recruits you, and they offer you a scholarship. Should you say, no, I need to show loyalty to my junior college?
No, you're going to leave junior college after a year or two anyhow.
Yeah.
But we're talking about kids coming in the front door. This kid from Mater Dei, McClellan, that's a running back of the future. And he was here less than 3 months, enrolled early, and now's gone.
Well, he wants to be the running back now. So he's going to go somewhere and they'll give him that opportunity.
Okay. You could argue with me, but I think you'd be wrong. But go ahead.
Okay.
Next question.
Move on to Gary. This is a long one. Hate the owner, love the quarterback here, Hacksaw. You are and forever will be the voice of the San Diego Chargers, and all of us San Diego fans remember you fondly saying the phrase, touchdown San Diego. I like that Herbert is so calm and cool under adversity, but I think he needs to develop a bit of a Dan Fouts, Phillip Rivers attitude when his receivers drop balls that hit them right in the hands. Maybe get in their face a little and bark at them. He has the stature and his plate hurt. He has.
He has. And I think he's a great quarterback. He's an intellect. I think he's a tough guy. He's uniquely athletic at 6'6". I mean, you watch him run in the open field. Now, I don't want my quarterback running very much in the NFL, Gary, but he's just great. The problem I have when I look at this roster right now, they got holes tons of places. They got a black hole at right tackle. They obviously now have got no star wide receivers. Now, maybe Josh Palmer develops, but maybe Josh Palmer's nothing more than a third. Guyton got hurt. Guyton's not really come back to be who he was. So they've got issues. They have issues in the defensive tackle position. They still got salary cap issues. Maybe some more bloodshed next year, either Bosa or Khalil Mack. So they got a lot of work to get done. I am fascinated with Joe Ortiz. He was the assistant general manager to two really bright light guys, Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCastro. Learned a lot, helped make them a lot of decisions. Now he's making the calls in Boltville for them as to what they're going to do a couple hours from now. Stay at 5 or trade back and stockpile, which is what the Baltimore Ravens blueprint was. So looking forward to that. That being said, thank you for the compliment. We love being the voice of the Chargers. Game day was so bloody great to be involved with. And for the fans, it's great. And we went from being very bad to being very good and going to the Super Bowl, and the journey and the stories will never leave me. One of my biggest disappointments, in addition to the fact that woke up one morning and Dean Spanos left our radio station and screwed all of us. The other disappointment is our community, for some reason in the media, has never put its arms around the team that went to the Super Bowl. The 20th anniversary passed, nothing happened. I did a big feature on TV on KUSA on the 25th anniversary because we've lost 11 of the players and I think 3 of the coaches from that team who've died at very young ages. But our community has just never put its arms around what was there. Maybe it's the aftermath and the bitterness towards Team Spanos and the first family of football's never won bleep for taking the franchise out of here. There's something missing. We do salute the Padres, and when they've gone to the World Series, there seems to be no emotional grasp from the media. Maybe it's because a whole pile of those guys weren't here when this team went to the Super Bowl because, man, that was a special window we had.
Would you do a 25th anniversary for a girlfriend that broke up with you? I mean, I think that's how a lot of San Diego fans feel about the Chargers.
But look at how many people are lined up here who want to talk NFL football and Charger football by virtue of the Fans Forum.
Oh, yeah.
The interest is there. And one of the hottest things I do on my website, I write a ton of NFL stuff. That's the hottest thing I have. So,
well, I think there's so many NFL fans that are still in San Diego that just love following the sport.
Yep.
But just to kind of go off on a little tangent here about the draft, and you were there back in the day when it was a one-day event. You talked about. Remember they had those helmet phones that were always like on the desk, and they actually used those, didn't they?
Yeah.
But I want to ask you about Mel Kiper Jr. Like, how did he suddenly appear on the scene and became an expert in the NFL draft?
He's a guy from Maryland who was a football junkie and sold himself going in the door in the early years of ESPN that, hey, I'm a draft analyst. And he was one of the first that put out the guides. And I tracked him down very early in his career, and I had him on all our draft preview shows and the old Extra 690 a lot. And then other guys developed. There was another guy, we had talked about him briefly. His name was Joel Bushbaum. Pro Football Weekly. He put out a guide. He was from Brooklyn, and he had great reputation. But he had opinions, just like Mel has opinions. And, he's since passed away. And then Dan Shanka developed Ourlads draft guide, which is the one that I use. And right now it's a big, thick book, the year-round publications and put out newsletters and everything. So there've been all these different guys. And of course, all the websites now, they got NFL beat writers that are doing their own mock drafts, et cetera. So the thing, it's become it's just a cottage industry. Is that the correct term?
Yeah.
It's just kind of exploded, which is really cool. It's different, but we did it when it was very small. I did 9 hours draft day from the stadium, and Kiper and Mortensen and John Clayton we're all close friends kind of. And those were my insiders, and we were one of the first ones that did that kind of stuff. Now everybody tries to do what we kind of pioneered. So it was cool.
Well, I remember when you did the show, at Qualcomm back in the day, you had prepackaged audio files of featuring certain players, which you see ESPN do that. But I was like, wow, good for you guys at 690 pulling that off.
Yeah, we took one of our sports producers and we let him voice it. He'd do a 15 or 20 second vignette about this left tackle. And we'd do 35 of them, and figuring that these will all be the guys who are going to get drafted. And Joe Totino, who became Jim Rome's producer, Joe's the one that voiced all that stuff.
Nice.
This quarterback from Purdue threw for 2,800 yards and 26 touchdowns and is projected to be strictly a pocket passer. And so we did all those little vignettes too a lot.
That's good.
I'm glad to remember that stuff.
You're a content creator, right? Yeah. Hey, Bulldog, Joe Totino.
Okay, next question.
Moving on. Okay, let's go here to Body by Billy. And he says, do the Chargers stay the course for the 5th pick and draft Harrison Jr. or Neighbors?
It seems to me, based on the insiders that I've been banging around with the last couple of days, that the two guys, if they stay at 5, will either be the Notre Dame tackle, Joe Alt, or will be Marvin Harrison Jr. Neighbors is a really fast guy, but I don't think he's Harrison in terms of experience. He's a blazer. There's some other things to his game that probably, will evolve, etc. That's if they stay at 5. But knowing who Joe Ortiz is and what he did in combo with the GMs of the Baltimore Ravens, they always trade back. So this is such a bonanza of great offensive talent. I could see them going back, and maybe it's going back to 11 and 23 in the Minnesota picks if Minnesota can get access to the right quarterback, or maybe the Chargers have to make the trade up one slot with Arizona to guarantee Minnesota that you're going to get a quarterback. So again, 5 o'clock hour. These are when these trades I think are going to be announced.
If the Chargers draft a wide receiver, is that are they saying something about Quentin Johnson that maybe he isn't what we thought he was going to be?
No, he's just young and developmental. So you got Quentin Johnson. I'll guarantee you they're going to work on him about running the right routes and holding onto the football. But he, for as much as he was open, he didn't make as many plays. And, we had drops and we had him running wrong routes. And then you could see the frustration in Justin Herbert. So, as we sit here right now, Joshua Palmer, who I like, the kid out of Tennessee, he came back from a big injury, but Joshua Palmer's a big body guy who's shown pretty good hands and shown toughness. And you got Quentin Johnston, and you still got Jalen Guyton, who's a burner, but has had a major knee injury. And so this will be the second year back from that surgery. So they have some guys there. But if you add Marvin Harrison with the other group, that's a pretty good group of young guys who can run. And most of those guys have some size too. In fact, all those guys have size. So I'll be fascinated. But if you do that, then you're going against the phrase that your sales pitch us on. We're going to run the damn ball, and we're going to protect that quarterback, and we're going to open holes for that new running back who came from the Baltimore Ravens, Gus Edwards. But if you take the wide out, then you're not going to have the run game protection package you would had now. No doubt you can go find an offensive tackle second round, or you can still trade for people. But so we'll see. It's going to be cool. I think 5 o'clock hour is going to be so neat to see what happens with draft pick 4, which is Arizona's, and what do they do with it.
Yeah, this is just an interesting draft because there's so many quarterbacks. So there's just all these personalities and teams that are desperate for moves.
Quarterbacks, wideouts, offensive tackles. I mean, the mass number of guys there. It's just, as I said, they're talking 22 offensive players in the first 32 picks.
That's crazy.
Yeah. You've never seen that much.
Yeah. There's usually all these defensive linemen and linebackers that get picked. But what do you think about Marvin Harrison Jr.? Do you think he'll turn out to be a better pro than his father?
His father was really good. His father did not come in with the kind of credentials he wound up with. That his dad, that might be a Hall of Fame type guy. Only concern I have is he displayed diva tendencies this year. I'm not working out at the combine. I'm not going to meet with anybody at the combine. Go look at my video if you're at the combine. And he didn't do anything in the pro day either at Ohio State, really, to speak of. So I don't know. It's something about wide receivers. They're all divas. They're all, here I am, glitter.
Well, they're not like Fred Bolitnikoff back in the day, right?
Exactly.
He was a tough guy.
Next question.
Okay. Well, actually, I want to throw this other one in from this is from Brown Al Bundy. He goes, Hacksaw, take off that Spanos hoodie.
No, it's Charger hoodie because I'm a Justin Herbert fan. I was a longtime voice of the Chargers, and I love the lightning bolt. I don't like the owner. I do like the quarterback. For those of you just joining us, let's be truthful here. I hope Justin Herbert goes 17-0, and I hope Dean Spanos goes 0-17. And I know there's counseling I can get for that equation. Go ahead, John. Next question.
Okay, here we go. Let's go to Steve, and he says, Hacksaw, how about those Kings last night? What a win. Vegas looks hot, too. Wow, they are dialed in. Love the Cup playoffs.
Oh, Stanley Cup has just been wild. I mean, that's an emotional blow for Edmonton to lose that game on home ice. And the Kings came out, and Kopitar and Kempe played really well in the first half. Cam Talbot made enough stops in goal, and they wound up winning the doggone game, and to a degree getting home ice advantage back as they come back to L.A. But that is Connor McDavid, and that is Evander Kemp, and that is Draisaitl, and it is Zach Hyman, who's got 54 freaking goals for a guy that was a utility forward when he was over in Toronto. So Edmonton, they could walk into L.A. and win one there. And, amid some other shockers. I mean, Las Vegas goes into Dallas and beats the Stars 2 straight, which is absolutely amazing. And Boston, Toronto. I mean, the Bruins gave up home ice. Maple Leafs won game 2. Boston went into the barn in Toronto, took it right back, and they just physically just dominated them. So, I mean, the playoffs are great. It's best of 7. Toughest trophy in the world to go get.
It's like one of the guys said on a previous podcast, death, taxes, and the Maple Leafs suffering in the playoffs.
Exactly.
But when the Kings had a big lead early, and then I thought they were going to blow it like the Lakers did.
Yeah, but Edmonton, they got the firepower. They can score in any shift from any time, any place. And Connor McDavid is just so gifted. And, he had 32 goals this year and 100 assists. He used to be just a gunner, just put the puck on the net. Now he's become a distributor, and he can still hurt you because he still wheels through your defense. I saw him go through 4 LA Kings, get to the front of the net and shoot last night and almost score. So McDavid he's a once in a lifetime guy, and he's so big and he's so fast.
Reminds me of Michael Jordan, right? It's like once he started dishing the ball around, then the team rose up. And when he was a one-man gang, they only went so far.
We carry on.
Carry on. Okay, here, let's go to the undrafted player. Hello, why the Chargers didn't keep wide receiver Mike Williams?
Big contract, 20 plus million. I think it was 24 million cap figure, and they had to get below the cap. The other factor, and I like Mike Williams, he's hurt a lot, has not been able to stay on the field. As hard as he plays, he gets hurt. So that's a big issue there, especially at that price tag, and especially the price tag of Keenan Allen. He should have stayed. I'm talking about Keenan Allen. They asked him to take a $4 million pay cut, give up a roster bonus he was due. Bosa did it. Khalil Mack did it. Keenan Allen, stay here. This thing is good. Great quarterback. So he said no. They offered him an extension. He said a restructured extension. He said no. So he goes to Chicago. We'll see what it's like with the rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams, and with the winter weather there. It's different than playing in Southern California. But they couldn't keep them all. And I was stunned they got rid of both receivers. But Mike Williams, it was the injury factor more than it was anything else.
Yeah, I mean, he went to USC, didn't he?
No, Clemson.
Was there another Mike Williams that went to USC back in the day? Maybe I'm getting those guys confused.
Yeah, there have been a couple of Mike Williams who were wide receivers. One was in Buffalo, and
yeah. So, again, Keenan Allen, you talk about loyalty. I mean, should he have stayed and taken less money? I mean, there's money on the table in Chicago, and it's going to be the hot team in the NFL this next year, at least as far as the media is concerned. Why not go?
New system.
Yeah.
It's cold. It's Chicago. That's winter. That's snow in November. Might not be able to throw the ball well, playing in bad elements. Out here, you're playing in the sun. You're playing with Justin Herbert. So he's had a great career. He's done much better than I ever thought when he came out of Cal, because he came out of Berkeley with a knee problem, and he kept getting hurt. He had some real significant injuries, spleen, etc. First group of years. He's a fine player, and he's a student of the game, etc. But so Justin Herbert's got no veteran receivers to throw to, and that's why at 5:00 tonight, wait to see what happens.
He's a Cal guy. He's a brainiac, right?
Yeah.
He's a smart guy. Okay, let's go to Willie. And he says, LA Rams need edge defensive pass rusher, offensive lineman, kicker, and power running back with fullback abilities in the draft.
Well, they got a power running back who has developed in the last year and a half. So I think they're set there. They've rebuilt their offensive line with a snap of the fingers. I mean, a year ago this time, you thought, how the hell are they going to survive the retirement of Andrew Whitworth? And they went out and they drafted Steven Avila and some other guys. And that offensive line is young, and they played well together, and they stayed on the field. They were all healthy last season. I think they're taking edge rusher. They might take the UCLA pass rusher Latu. They might take Verse out of Florida State. They might take the big defensive tackle, Murphy out of Texas, to replace Aaron Donald. And they got 11 picks. So they can do a lot of creative maneuvering with those assets to get maybe more high draft picks. I could see them make a trade to get another second rounder, or do something where they unload a bunch of back end picks and wind up with an additional third round pick. So going to be a couple of days of real interesting football to see what the Rams do, because the Rams historically under Les Snead have done a real good job with what draft picks they've had. And now they got 11 of them tonight.
Who do you think has a brighter short-term future, the Chargers or the Rams?
I would say short term, probably the Rams, because they got a stud quarterback and they got a lot of components around that quarterback. Down road, if the Chargers can keep Herbert healthy, Chargers stay free of injury, and if they can use these draft picks to get more skilled people, maybe the Chargers. But that's just picking ideas out of the sky, John, because injuries change everything in the NFL, and everybody gets hurt in the NFL. And what you have on your roster right now might not be there September 15th when the season starts, because guys get hurt in preseason games or first game of the season. You lose your quarterback, game's over. So that's where we are. It's kind of tough to project way down road. Injury factor is so significant.
Do you think LA fans are going to ever really embrace the Chargers?
Only if they're in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams have been there, done that. Rams have won the NFC. Rams won the Super Bowl. Chargers have been trying to sales pitch who we are, and look at our snazzy powder blue uniforms and our logo, and they do have the quarterback, but they just continue to have either injury problems or now salary cap problems.
You want to keep going on social media?
Well, let's do a couple more. Social media. Go ahead, fire
Okay,
away.
let's go here and let's get okay, here's another Charger comment. He goes, let's try. This is from Jose, and he says the Chargers should stay at number 5. The draft is full of talent in all positions. Harrison or Neighbors should be the pick, then trade up from 37 to 9 to 11 and get Bowers.
Well, the only issue, though, I mean, to try to go from 37 into the first round, they're not going to get to 9, 10, or 11, Jose. You could, if you take 37 and you take your third round pick, you might be able to get into the top of the second round. That's the only way you're going to get another higher pick, but you're not going to get to the back end of the first round from the 37th position. Nobody's going to trade you the 28th pick to drop all the way down to 37 unless you're willing to give them the rest of your draft board. And I don't think you're going to see Ortiz do that.
I just love when fans come up with trade ideas. And 90% of the time they're unrealistic, but they're fun to think about and talk about.
You sit in a bar with these guys and they start talking trades, and you're playing general manager and I'm playing general manager, and we're going to wind up missing dinner at home because we're sitting there making trades.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun spending other people's money, isn't it? Okay, let's hear. This is a comment about the PGA that I thought was really good. This is from Agent All-Star. He says, I've been watching Bryson DeChambeau's YouTube channel, and seeing him with Phil Mickelson and other golfers mic'd up and showing their personalities is where golf needs to go. The old boring TV format is the way of the past. Give the viewers more access. Let the players be more loose and relaxed.
Well, you won't see that in the Grand Slam events. You won't see that at Augusta. I guarantee you that. Would it be cool if they changed the structure of the broadcast a little bit? But, you can't live mic these guys. I mean, these guys are playing for a lot of money, and the guy standing on a tee is not going to sit there and talk to the TV anchor up in the tower about where am I going to hit the ball. He's laser focused on what he's got to do. What they really need to do is they need to get all the marquee names back together. I swear to you, outside of Scotty Scheffler, outside of Patrick Cantlay, outside of Xander Schauffele, who I'm kind of disappointed in because I thought he was a star and he hasn't turned the corner and gotten to the next level. Outside of those guys, do you know who any of these other people are? No. I mean, it's a problem because the LIV has strip mined all the stars from the PGA and taken them over there. So they're over there. What time is it in Ecuador right now? That's where the LIV tournament is. That's the problem. We can't watch Phil, although Phil's not playing well, but we can't watch Dustin Johnson or Koepka or John Rahm because we don't know when the tournaments are being played, and they're being played in such weirdo hours. And the whole thing, golf is in a massive, massive trouble spot right now. And they got to solve this. They got to merge this. And they got to figure out how to do it. John and I, when this thing first broke 8 months ago, a year ago, we said this could be really great if the PGA takes control of the overall tour. They hold the umbrella, and you allow LIV to create these unique tournaments in Europe, in Africa, in the Pacific Rim, and you bring all the guys together. But to do it is really hard because you've got LIV that says we want to play team play, and PGA says, nah, nobody wants that. And then LIV's got this whole issue with how we're going to market this and who's going to pay these guys who we promised these millions and millions of dollars for. And then you got the PGA players who say it's got to be medal play. And you guys have to find a way to get world ranking points so you can join us in all the Grand Slam events. And by the way, you violated your tour card, and we're not letting you back into the clubhouse unless you pay an entry fee or a penalty for what the hell you did to the PGA Tour. This is on so many layers, so many levels, so complicated.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that All-Star here gets right, Agent All-Star, is that we need to get to know these players more. We need to understand their personalities, what makes them tick, because, the sort of the robo golf guy, that's just like totally focused on the game. Good for him, but it doesn't make the sport sexy. But imagine Xander Schauffele, who we root for because he's a local guy, San Diego State kid. All the big names are gone, and you're in the PGA and like, wow, this is my opportunity that I can actually go out and really start winning.
And I thought it was, and it hasn't happened.
Yeah, it's got to be killing him, knowing that this opportunity is right in front of him, and he keeps coming up a little short.
You mean on the Scotty Scheffler Invitational Tour?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you talk about somebody that's just taken the tour by the throat, and he's steady, and he's spectacular. There's no fluff around him. There's no fireworks around him. He's kind of cool. He's a really, really good golfer, but the rest of the field has just been decimated, and anybody can show up at the top of the leaderboard and you say, "Who's that?"
Yeah,
Outside of
exactly.
the top 3 or 4 names that I'd mentioned.
Remember Craig Stadler when
Sure.
he golfed at Torrey Pines? I remember one time he got down on his knees and put a towel under his knees to not get his knees wet, and he got penalized for that.
Yeah, the Walrus.
The Walrus, and he was a character
And
as
he
well.
was a persona. He really was.
Yeah, and so we just need more of that in golf,
Okay. Listen, we hope you have enjoyed